The sound wasn't a thud, it was a crack. Sharp, violent, echoing through the pressurized silence of the first-class cabin at 30,000 feet. Then came the gasp, a collective intake of breath from 12 other passengers frozen in their reclining leather seats. Dr. Nia Wallace's face turned sideways, her cheek stinging with a heat that spread faster than the shock. Standing over her was Brittany, a flight attendant whose pristine uniform could no longer hide the ugly rage beneath. "I told you to listen!" Brittany screamed, hand still raised. But what Brittany didn't know was that the woman she just assaulted wasn't just a passenger. She was the one woman on Earth who held Brittany's future in her hands, and the camera in seat 2B was recording everything. The rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of JFK's Terminal 4, mirroring the storm brewing inside Dr. Nia Wallace's chest. She checked her watch, a platinum Patek Philippe that cost more than most cars, though she wore it tucked discreetly under the sleeve of her oversized charcoal cashmere hoodie. To the untrained eye, Nia looked like a tired graduate student. No makeup, hair pulled back in a loose, slightly messy bun, and sweatpants that were comfortable but lacked the visible branding of luxury labels. She was exhausted. She had just come off a 22-hour shift at Mount Sinai Hospital, where she had successfully removed a glioblastoma from the brain of a 6-year-old girl. The surgery had been grueling, a marathon of precision and nerves. Now, she was flying to London, not for a vacation, but to meet with the board of directors for Royal Horizon Airlines. Nia wasn't just a neurosurgeon, she was a quiet investor, a massive one. 3 years ago, she had inherited a minority stake in the airline from her late father, a silent partner who believed in privacy above all else. Today she was flying to finalize a merger that would save the company from bankruptcy. But nobody on the ground knew that. To the staff of Flight 902, she was just a name on a manifest. And apparently, to the senior flight attendant greeting passengers at the door, she was an intruder. "Boarding pass." The voice was sharp, clipped, and devoid of the honeyed warmth usually reserved for first-class passengers. Nia looked up from her phone. Standing there was Brittany St. James. Brittany was the picture of corporate perfection, blonde hair lacquered into an immobile twist, red lipstick applied with geometric precision, and a uniform that fit a little too tightly. Her name tag gleamed under the fluorescent lights, but her eyes were cold, scanning Nia from her sneakers to her hoodie with open disdain. "It's on my phone," Nia said, her voice raspy from fatigue. She held up the QR code. Brittany didn't scan it immediately. She let out a short, audible sigh, the kind that screams, "Inconvenience." "Ma'am, the economy line is actually to your right. This lane is for first class and Diamond Medallion members only. We're trying to keep the flow moving." Nia blinked, too tired for a confrontation. "I know. I'm in seat 1A. Brittany let out a scoff, a short puff of air through her nose. She snatched the scanner from the counter and aimed it at Nia's phone aggressively, clearly expecting the angry beep of a rejection. Beep. A green light flashed. 1A. Wallace N. Brittany stared at the screen, then back at Nia. There was no apology, no change in demeanor. Instead, her eyes narrowed, suspicion clouding her gaze. She looked at Nia as if she had stolen the ticket, or perhaps hacked the system. "Seat 1A, Brittany repeated, her tone flat. "Right this way. Do try to keep your carry-on out of the aisle. We have actual business travelers boarding soon who need the space." Nia felt the sting of the insult. Actual business travelers. But she bit her tongue. She had dealt with people like Brittany her whole life, people who couldn't reconcile her black skin and casual attire with the concept of wealth or status. Nia walked down the jet bridge, dragging her small leather weekender bag. As she stepped onto the plane, The atmosphere shifted. The lighting was soft, amber and calming. The seats were private pods with lay-flat beds. Nia found 1A, dropped her bag into the overhead bin, and collapsed into the seat. She closed her eyes, praying for sleep before takeoff. She didn't see Brittany standing in the galley just a few feet away, whispering to a younger flight attendant named Casey. "Check her ID again when we're in the air," Brittany hissed, glancing at Nia. "I've seen this before. Airline employees using non-rev passes and acting like they own the place. Or she's an upgrade glitch. Look at her. She looks like she just rolled out of a shelter." Casey, a brunette with a nervous demeanor, looked uncomfortable. "Brittany, the manifest says she's a full-fare paying passenger. It says VIP in the notes." "VIP?" Brittany laughed, a harsh sound. "Please. Probably means very irritating passenger. Just keep an eye on her. If she asks for anything expensive, tell her we're out. I'm not wasting the good champagne on someone who probably can't tell the difference between Dom Perignon and sparkling grape juice." Nia heard the laughter, though she couldn't make out the words. She pulled her noise-cancelling headphones over her ears, drowning out the world. She didn't care about the champagne. She just wanted to survive the 7-hour flight to London. But Brittany St. James had already decided that Dr. Nia Wallace was a problem, and Brittany prided herself on fixing problems. The flight was fully boarded. The first-class cabin was occupied by the usual suspects: a tech CEO in 2A, tapping furiously on a laptop, an elderly couple in 3A and 3B, dripping in diamonds, and a famous British architect in 1B across the aisle. As the plane pushed back from the gate, the fasten seatbelt sign chimed. Brittany began her safety demonstration, her movements sharp and performative. She smiled dazzlingly at the architect in 1B, practically flirting with him as she checked his seatbelt. "Is everything comfortable for you, Mr. Henderson?" she cooed, touching his shoulder lightly. "Let me know if you need an extra pillow." Then she turned to Nia. The smile vanished instantly. "Seatbelt," Brittany barked. Nia was already buckled in. She pointed to the strap across her lap. "It needs to be visible," Brittany snapped. "Lift your hoodie. I need to see the click." Nia took a deep breath, lifting the hem of her sweatshirt to show the buckle. "It's fastened. It has been for 10 minutes. "Don't give me attitude," Brittany said, loud enough for Mr. Henderson to look over. "I am responsible for the safety of everyone on this vessel. If you can't comply with basic federal regulations, I can have the captain turn this plane around and have you escorted off. Do you understand?" The cabin went silent. Mr. Henderson looked uncomfortable. "I think she's fine, miss," he ventured softly. Brittany whipped her head around, beaming a fake smile at him. "Oh, don't worry, Mr. Henderson. We just have to be very careful with security risks." Nia felt the heat rise in her cheeks. Security risk. The code word for "you don't look like us." Nia removed her headphones. "Excuse me," Nia said, her voice calm but firm. It was the voice she used when a resident made a mistake during surgery. Controlled, authoritative, dangerous. "My name is Dr. Wallace. I am not a security risk. I am a passenger who is tired and would like to be left alone. Please stop harassing me." Brittany's eyes widened. She wasn't used to passengers pushing back, especially not ones who looked like Nia. She leaned in closer, invading Nia's personal space. "Doctor?" Brittany smirked. "What are you, a doctor of art history?" "Look, Dr. Wallace, on this plane I am the authority. You might be used to getting your way wherever you come from, but up here, you listen to me. Now put your phone in airplane mode. I saw the screen light up." It was a lie. The phone was dark. Nia stared at her, realizing this wasn't just bias. This was a power trip. Brittany was baiting her. She wanted a reaction. She wanted Nia to yell so she could justify kicking her off. Nia didn't take the bait. She simply turned her phone over to show the black screen. "It's off. May I have a bottle of water, please?" "We haven't started service yet," Brittany said dismissively, straightening up. "Wait your turn." She turned on her heel and marched back to the galley. As the plane taxied to the runway, Nia looked across the aisle. Mr. Henderson gave her a sympathetic grimace. "She's a bit of a dragon, isn't she?" he whispered. "That's an insult to dragons," Nia murmured. 10 minutes later, they were airborne. The chimes signaled that the crew could move about the cabin. The smell of warm nuts and heated towels filled the air. Casey, the younger flight attendant, began moving down the aisle with the drinks cart. Casey stopped at Nia's seat. She looked nervous. "Dr. Wallace, can I get you anything to drink?" "Just a sparkling water with lime, please. And maybe some aspirin if you have it in the kit. I have a migraine." "Of course," Casey said kindly. She reached for a crystal tumbler. Suddenly, Brittany appeared from the galley, intercepting Casey. She placed a hand firmly on the cart, stopping it. "Casey," Brittany said, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. "Mr. Sterling in 4A needs his scotch immediately. He's a Diamond member. Prioritize." "But I was just serving Dr. Wallace." "Go," Brittany ordered. Casey looked at Nia apologetically, then pushed the cart past seat 1A toward row 4. Nia was skipped. Nia sat in disbelief. She was thirsty, her head was throbbing, and she was being deliberately ignored in a cabin that cost $12,000 a ticket. She pressed the call button. 1 minute passed. 2. The light above her seat glowed blue, a beacon of her request. Brittany walked past the aisle 3 times, collecting napkins from other passengers, fluffing pillows, completely ignoring the light. Finally, Nia reached out as Brittany passed. She didn't grab her, just raised a hand to wave. "Excuse me. My water." Brittany stopped. She looked at the call light, then reached up and pressed the button to turn it off. "I saw the light, Ma'am. You don't need to wave your hands at me like I'm a servant. We are busy. The turbulence is picking up, and I can't be serving drinks right now." "You just served the man in 1B a gin and tonic," Nia pointed out, gesturing to Mr. Henderson's fresh glass. "He ordered it before the chop started." Brittany lied smoothly. "Now sit back. You're blocking the aisle." "I want to speak to the purser," Nia said. "Or the captain." Brittany laughed. It was a cold, incredulous sound. "You want to bother Captain Miller? Because you didn't get your water fast enough? You really are unbelievable. You people are always so entitled. You people." The air in the cabin seemed to drop 10 degrees. The other passengers had stopped typing and reading. They were watching now. "What did you say?" Nia asked, her voice deadly quiet. "I said." Brittany leaned down, her face inches from Nia's, her perfume cloying and overpowering. "Passengers who upgrade with miles. You think you own the plane. You're lucky to be sitting here. Don't push your luck, or I'll have you in zip ties before we hit cruising altitude." Nia unbuckled her seatbelt. She had had enough. "I need your name, full name, and your employee ID number. Now." Brittany's face flushed red. The mask of professional arrogance cracked, revealing pure, unadulterated malice. She had never been challenged like this, not by someone she deemed beneath her. "Sit down," Brittany hissed. "Not until I get your name." Nia stood up. She wasn't tall, but she had the presence of a surgeon who commanded operating theaters. She looked Brittany in the eye. Brittany panicked. She felt her control slipping. She felt the eyes of the wealthy white passengers on her. She needed to reassert dominance. She needed to put this woman back in her place. In a moment of pure, reactive fury, Brittany's hand flew up. It wasn't a calculated move. It was instinct, born of prejudice and unchecked power. Crack. The slap connected with Nia's cheekbone with sickening force. Nia's head snapped to the side. She stumbled back, falling into her seat. Silence. Absolute, terrifying silence. Brittany stood there, her hand hovering in the air, her chest heaving. For a split second, she looked triumphant. Then, she looked at the passengers. Mr. Henderson's mouth was agape. The tech CEO in 2A was holding his phone up, the camera lens pointed directly at Brittany. The red rec dot was visible on his screen. Brittany froze. Nia slowly touched her cheek. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She turned her head back to face Brittany. Her eyes were dry, but they burned with a cold, nuclear fire. "You have just made," Nia whispered, her voice trembling with suppressed rage, "the last mistake of your career." Brittany, realizing the gravity of what she had just done, and who might have seen it, decided to double down. She screamed, "Assault! She hit me! She assaulted a crew member!" Brittany threw herself backward, faking a stumble, grasping at her own face. "Help! She's crazy!" The drama had just begun, but Brittany had no idea that the crazy woman in 1A was currently composing a text message on her phone. A text message to Richard Sterling, the CEO of the airline. Emergency on Flight 902. "I've been assaulted by crew. Secure the cockpit voice recorder and cabin video immediately. I'm taking control." The first-class cabin of Flight 902 had transformed into a crime scene, though the crime being investigated was a fabrication. Brittany St. James had retreated to the galley, pressing a bag of ice against her own face, a face that had not been touched. She was hyperventilating, loud, gasping sobs that carried clearly through the curtain. It was a performance worthy of an Academy Award, designed to do one thing: weaponize the sympathy of the crew against the calm, black woman in seat 1. Casey, the young junior flight attendant, stood frozen near the cockpit door, her hands shaking. She had seen the slap. She had seen Brittany strike the passenger. But Casey was 22, on probation, and terrified of Brittany, who was the lead flight attendant and best friends with the union rep. Brittany grabbed Casey's arm, her nails digging into the younger woman's skin. "You saw her," Brittany hissed, her voice low and venomous, dropping the sobbing act for a split second. "She lunged at me. She scratched me. I pushed her back in self-defense. That's what you saw. If you say anything else, I will make sure you never fly again. I'll have you blacklisted for negligence. Do you understand?" Casey stammered, tears welling in her own eyes. "Brittany, She didn't—" "Do you want to lose your job, Casey?" Brittany snapped, her eyes wide and manic. "She's a nobody. She's an upgrade glitch. Who are they going to believe? Me, with 10 years of service, or some aggressive passenger in a hoodie? Back me up, or you're done." Before Casey could answer, the cockpit door clicked open. Captain Miller stepped out. He was a silver-haired veteran, a man who just wanted a smooth flight to retirement. He looked at Brittany, hunched over and sobbing, and then at Nia, who was sitting perfectly still in 1A, dabbing a napkin to a small cut on her cheekbone where Brittany's ring had grazed her. "Report!" Captain Miller barked, his voice commanding. Brittany threw herself at the captain, burying her face in his shoulder. "Captain, she went crazy. I asked her to turn off her phone during turbulence, and she started screaming that she owned the airline. Then she jumped up and clawed at my face. I was so scared, Captain, I didn't know what to do." Miller stiffened. Assault on a crew member was a federal offense. It was the one thing pilots had zero tolerance for. He gently pushed Brittany aside and marched toward seat 1A. Nia looked up as the captain loomed over her. His face was red with anger. He didn't ask her side of the story. He didn't look at the other passengers. He saw a crying flight attendant and a passenger who didn't fit the first-class profile. "Ma'am," Miller said, his voice hard. "I need your passport and boarding pass immediately." "Captain Miller," Nia said, her voice steady despite the throbbing pain in her face. "I suggest you check the cabin video footage before you proceed. Your flight attendant, Ms. St. James, just physically assaulted me because I asked for her name." "Liar!" Brittany shrieked from the galley. "She's lying! Look at her! She's dangerous!" Miller glared at Nia. "Ms. St. James has an unblemished record. You are disrupting a transatlantic flight. Do you have any idea the trouble you are in? I can divert this plane to Halifax right now and have the Royal Canadian Mounted Police drag you off." "I am not disrupting anything," Nia replied coolly. "I am sitting in my seat. I am injured. I am a surgeon, Captain. I know the difference between a scratch and a contusion. I have a contusion on my zygomatic arch from your employee's hand. I need ice, and I need you to contact the ground." "You don't make demands here," Miller snapped. He reached for his radio clip. "Casey, bring me the restraint kit." A gasp went through the cabin. The restraint kit. Zip ties. Mr. Henderson, the architect in 1B, finally unbuckled his seatbelt. "Captain, this is madness," he said, standing up. His British accent was refined, authoritative. "The young lady is telling the truth. Your stewardess struck her. I saw it. We all saw it." Miller paused, looking at Henderson. He respected men in suits. "Sir, please take your seat. This is a security matter. You might have seen the reaction, but you didn't see the provocation." "There was no provocation," shouted the tech CEO in 2A, Mr. Zhao. He held up his phone. "I have it on video. She slapped her out of nowhere. If you touch that passenger, Captain, you're aiding and abetting a battery." Brittany's head snapped toward Mr. Zhao. Panic flared in her chest. A video. She hadn't realized he was filming. She had to discredit him. "He's with her!" Brittany yelled, improvising wildly. "I saw them signaling each other before takeoff. They're working together. It's a setup. He's probably going to try to blackmail the airline." It was a ridiculous accusation, but in the heat of the moment, with adrenaline pumping, Captain Miller made a fatal error in judgment. He chose to protect his crew over the passengers. He chose to believe the hysteria of the woman he had flown with for 5 years over the strangers in the cabin. "Sir, put the phone away or I will have it confiscated," Miller warned Zhao. He turned back to Nia. "Stand up. Turn around. Hands behind your back." Nia stared at him. She saw the zip ties in his hand. She saw the absolute failure of the system. She realized that no matter who she was, no matter her degrees, her money, or her status, in this moment, she was just a suspect. She slowly stood up. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She turned around and offered her wrists. "You are making a mistake, Captain," Nia whispered as the plastic ties bit into her skin. "A career-ending mistake." Miller tightened the zip ties. "I'll take my chances. You're restrained until we land. Not a word out of you." He shoved her back into the seat. Brittany stood in the galley, a smirk ghosting across her face as she wiped her fake tears. She had won. She had asserted her dominance. The uppity passenger was bound and humiliated. But the plane was equipped with Wi-Fi, and while Captain Miller was busy acting as the enforcer and Brittany was gloating, the message Nia had sent minutes ago had traveled through the atmosphere, bounced off a satellite, and landed on the desk of Richard Sterling in London. And Richard Sterling was not happy. 20 minutes passed. The atmosphere in the cabin was suffocating. Nia sat with her hands bound behind her back, her shoulders aching, her face throbbing. She closed her eyes, breathing through the pain, focusing on the calm meditation techniques she used before brain surgery. She had to remain stoic. If she acted out now, she would validate Brittany's narrative. Mr. Zhao had not put his phone away. He had quietly uploaded the video to a private cloud server and emailed the link to his lawyer at Kirkland & Ellis, one of the most powerful law firms on the planet. He also CC'd the inforoyalhorizon.com tip line. The passengers were whispering. Brittany was pacing the aisle, acting the martyr, offering extra wine to the other passengers as if to buy their silence. "So sorry for the disturbance," she whispered to an older couple. "We just can't be too careful these days. You never know who gets on board." Then the sound changed. A sharp, urgent chime rang out in the cabin. 3 distinct beeps. It wasn't the call button. It was the crew communication line. Simultaneously, the phone in the cockpit began to ring. It was the SAT phone, a direct line from operations control that was rarely used unless there was a mechanical failure or a hijacking. Captain Miller was back in the cockpit, sipping coffee, trying to lower his heart rate. He picked up the handset. "Flight 902, Captain Miller speaking." "Miller, this is operations. Stand by for the CEO." Miller blinked. "Excuse me? Dispatch?" "Stand by for Mr. Sterling. Immediately." Miller's blood ran cold. The CEO of Royal Horizon Airlines never called pilots. Never. A click, then a voice that was familiar from company-wide briefing videos, but much colder, much sharper. "Captain Miller," Richard Sterling's voice crackled over the satellite link. "What is your status?" Mr. Sterling. "Sir, we are cruising at 36,000 feet. Everything is normal. We had a security incident in the cabin, but it has been contained. A passenger became unruly and assaulted the lead flight attendant. We have her restrained." There was a long, terrifying silence on the other end of the line. "Restrained?" Sterling asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "You have restrained the passenger in 1A?" "Yes, sir. She's zip-tied. We're planning to divert to Halifax, or continue to Heathrow and have police meet the aircraft." "Miller!" Sterling roared, the sound distorting over the speaker. "Do you have the manifest in front of you?" "Yes, sir." "Look at the notes section for Passenger Wallace, Naya. Read it to me. Now." Miller fumbled for the iPad. He brought up the manifest. He had glanced at it earlier, but hadn't scrolled down to the internal comments, usually reserved for gate agents. He scrolled. His heart stopped. "Passenger status. Owner, board member. Priority code. Royal Omega 1. Do not downgrade. Do not disturb. VIP investor." Miller stared at the words. "Owner." I see it, sir," Miller whispered, his throat dry as dust. "That unruly passenger you just zip-tied," Sterling said, his voice trembling with fury, "is Dr. Naya Wallace. She owns 15% of this airline. She is currently flying to London to sign the check that ensures you receive a pension next year. And she just messaged me saying she was slapped by a flight attendant and then bound by the captain." Miller felt the cockpit spinning. He looked at the door. He looked at his hands. "Sir, the flight attendant, Miss St. James, she said—" "I don't care what she said," Sterling shouted. "I have a video link in my inbox from a Mr. Zhao in seat 2A. I just watched your lead flight attendant slap my biggest investor across the face. It's viral, Miller. It's already on Twitter. It has 50,000 views in 10 minutes. Miller slumped in his seat. It was over. Everything was over. "Listen to me closely, Captain," Sterling commanded. "You are going to walk out there. You are going to cut those ties off Dr. Wallace's hands personally. You are going to apologize. And then you are going to relieve Ms. St. James of duty immediately. If Dr. Wallace is not comfortable, you divert the plane. If she says fly, you fly. She is effectively your boss right now. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Miller croaked. "And Miller? If she decides to press charges, which I suspect she will, Royal Horizon will not be providing you with legal counsel. Fix this. Now." The line went dead. Captain Miller sat there for 10 seconds, staring at the instrument panel. He felt like he was going to vomit. He realized he had been played. Brittany had played him. She had used his authority to cover up her assault, and he had walked right into it. He stood up, his legs shaky. He grabbed the wire cutters from the emergency toolkit. He took a deep breath and opened the cockpit door. The cabin was quiet. Brittany was in the aisle, topping off Mr. Henderson's drink, smiling that plastic smile. She looked up as the captain emerged, expecting a thumbs up or a nod of solidarity. Instead, she saw a man who looked like he had seen a ghost. Miller walked past Brittany without looking at her. He didn't say a word. He walked straight to seat 1A. Nia was looking out the window, her wrists chafing against the plastic. She heard the captain approach but didn't turn. "Dr. Wallace," Miller said. His voice was broken, humble. "Dr. Wallace, please look at me." Nia turned slowly. Her expression was unreadable. "Are we landing, Captain?" Miller knelt. He actually knelt on the floor of the cabin, right beside her seat. The entire first-class cabin watched in shock. Brittany dropped the bottle of gin she was holding. It didn't break, but it rolled across the floor with a hollow thud. "No, ma'am," Miller said, raising the cutters. I have made a terrible mistake. I have been informed of the situation. I have spoken to Mr. Sterling." Brittany gasped loudly. "Mr. Sterling, the CEO!" Miller ignored her. He carefully snipped the zip ties. Nia pulled her arms forward, rubbing her wrists. There were angry red marks where the plastic had been. "I am so incredibly sorry," Miller said, sweat beading on his forehead. "I didn't know. I didn't check." "You didn't verify," Nia corrected him, her voice icy. "You assumed, because of how I look, and because of who she is." She pointed a shaking finger at Brittany. Miller nodded. "You are right. I failed." Nia stood up, stretching her arms. She looked down at the captain, then looked at Brittany. Brittany was pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. The power dynamic had shifted so violently, the air in the cabin felt electrified. "Captain Miller," Nia said, her voice projecting clearly. "I want that woman removed from this cabin immediately. She is not to speak to any passenger. She is not to serve any food. She is to sit in the jump seat in the rear galley until we land." "Yes, ma'am," Miller said, standing up. He turned to Brittany. His eyes were hard, filled with the anger of a man who knew his career was hanging by a thread because of her lies. "Brittany," Miller barked, "get your bag, go to the rear. You are relieved of duty." "But, Captain," Brittany stammered, tears streaming down her face. Real tears this time. "She's lying. He's the CEO. He doesn't know what happened. You can't do this to me in front of them." "Move," Miller shouted. "Now, or I will have the police waiting for you at Heathrow." Brittany looked around the cabin. Mr. Henderson was glaring at her. Mr. Zhao was filming. Casey, the junior flight attendant, was looking at the floor, refusing to make eye contact. Brittany St. James, the queen of the cabin, the bully in the sky, grabbed her purse from the closet. She had to walk the walk of shame all the way through first class, through business, and through the entire economy section to the back of the plane. As she passed seat 1A, Nia didn't even look at her. Nia was busy accepting a fresh glass of water and an ice pack from a trembling Casey. But the story wasn't over. The plane still had 5 hours to go. And while Brittany sat in the back, plotting her revenge, Nia Wallace was preparing for war. She didn't just want Brittany fired. She wanted to ensure this never happened to another passenger again. And when they landed in London, the greeting party would be unlike anything Heathrow had ever seen. For the remaining 5 hours of the flight, the atmosphere inside the Boeing 777 was thick enough to choke on. In the rear galley, exiled from her throne, Brittany St. James sat on a jump seat, stewing in a toxic brew of fear and denial. She wasn't sorry. She was calculating. She pulled out her personal phone, hiding it under a blanket. She began texting her union representative, spinning a web of lies. Passenger 1A was drunk, she typed. She physically attacked me. Captain is intimidated by her wealth. I am the victim. I need a lawyer waiting at Heathrow. She looked at the economy passengers. To them she was just a flight attendant on a break. They didn't know she was a pariah. She tried to rally the economy crew, a young man named David and a woman named Chloe. "Can you believe that woman in first?" Brittany whispered to David, her eyes wide and innocent. She threw a glass at me, and Miller took her side. "It's disgusting. The rich get away with everything." David, who had heard rumors from Casey but hadn't seen the incident, looked sympathetic. "That's terrible, Britt. Don't worry. The union will eat her alive." Brittany nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. Exactly, she thought. It's her word against mine, and I have the uniform. Meanwhile, in seat 1A, Dr. Nia Wallace was not sleeping. She was working. The pain in her cheek had dulled to a throb, but her mind was razor-sharp. She was connected to the in-flight Wi-Fi, exchanging encrypted emails with her legal team in New York and London. Casey, the young flight attendant who had been bullied into silence earlier, approached Nia's seat cautiously. She held a tray with a warm towel and a sealed envelope. "Dr. Wallace?" Casey's voice was barely a whisper. Nia looked up. Her eyes were tired, but kind. "Yes, Casey?" I wrote this for you." Casey placed the envelope on the tray. "It's a statement. The truth. I wrote down everything I saw. I wrote down that she hit you. I wrote down that she forced me to skip your service. I know I might lose my job for going against a senior lead, but I can't let her get away with this." Nia took the envelope. She looked at the young woman's trembling hands. "You won't lose your job, Casey," Nia said firmly. "In fact, you're the only one on this crew who has a future with Royal Horizon after today." Casey exhaled, a tear escaping her eye. "I'm so sorry I didn't step in sooner." "You stepped in now," Nia said. "That matters." As the plane began its descent over the grey, sprawling cityscape of London, the pilot's voice came over the intercom. It wasn't Captain Miller. It was the first officer. Miller was too shaken to speak. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are beginning our final approach into Heathrow. Please return your seats to the upright position. Cabin crew, prepare for landing." In the back, Brittany stood up, straightening her skirt. She checked her makeup in the mirror. She applied a fresh coat of red lipstick. She was ready to fight. She convinced herself that once they were on the ground, the British police would see a hysterical black woman and a composed, uniformed professional, and they would make the right choice. She had no idea that the video Mr. Zhao had uploaded was now the #1 trending topic on Twitter in the UK. The hashtag Arishok Boycott Royal Horizon was trending. And Richard Sterling, the CEO, was not in his office. He was in a black Mercedes, speeding toward Terminal 3 with a team of lawyers and the Metropolitan Police. The wheels touched down with a jolt. The reverse thrusters roared, slowing the massive beast of a plane. As they taxied toward the gate, the dread in the cabin was palpable. Usually when a plane lands, everyone rushes to stand up. Not this time. As the fasten seatbelt sign turned off, the first officer spoke again. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We have been instructed by airport authorities to keep the doors closed until police board the aircraft. Please stay in your seats." A murmur of panic went through economy. In the back, Brittany smirked. Good, she thought. Miller actually called them. She's going to jail. She grabbed her carry-on bag and marched toward the front of the plane, pushing past David. She wanted to be there when they handcuffed Nea. She wanted to see the look on her face. Brittany arrived in the first-class cabin just as the main cabin door opened. 2 officers from the Metropolitan Police stepped on board, wearing high-visibility jackets. Behind them was a tall, grey-haired man in an impeccable navy suit. It was Richard Sterling, the CEO of the airline. Brittany's heart soared. The CEO himself. He must have come to defend his crew. She stepped forward, putting on her best, traumatized victim face. "Mr. Sterling," Brittany cried out, rushing toward him. "Oh, thank God you're here. It's been a nightmare. That woman—" She pointed an accusatory finger at Nea, who was sitting calmly in 1A. "She assaulted me. She threatened the safety of the flight." The cabin went silent. Mr. Sterling looked at Brittany. His expression was one of pure, unadulterated disgust. He didn't even acknowledge her presence. He walked right past her. Brittany froze, her hand still raised in the air. Sterling stopped at seat 1A. He bowed his head slightly. "Dr. Wallace, on behalf of Royal Horizon Airlines, I am profoundly sorry." Nea stood up. She looked at Sterling, then at Brittany. "Mr. Sterling," Nea said calmly, "I assume you've seen the video?" "The whole world has seen it," Sterling replied. He turned slowly to face Brittany. Brittany's confusion was morphing into terror. "Video? What video?" "The video of you slapping a passenger," Sterling said, his voice cold and loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. "The video of you lying about it. The video of you abusing your power." "It's a fake," Brittany screamed, backing away. "She edited it. She's a liar." "Miss St. James," one of the police officers stepped forward. "I need you to step this way." "Me?" Brittany shrieked. "Why me? Arrest her. She's the problem." "Ms. St. James," the officer said, pulling a pair of handcuffs from his belt. "You are under arrest for common assault and endangering the safety of an aircraft. You have the right to remain silent." The click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound in the world. Brittany struggled, thrashing against the officer. "Get off me! Do you know who I am? I am a lead flight attendant. Captain Miller! Tell them she's crazy!" Captain Miller emerged from the cockpit. He looked old, tired, and defeated. He looked at Brittany, then looked away. "I have given my statement to the police, Brittany. I told them the truth. I told them you hit her." Brittany's face crumbled. The mask fell away, revealing a terrified bully. No, you can't do this. I have a pension. I have seniority." "You have nothing," Nea said. She stepped into the aisle, standing face to face with Brittany. Brittany looked at Nea with pure hatred. "You ruined my life." "No, Brittany," Nea said softly. "You ruined your own life. You saw a black woman in a hoodie and decided I was beneath you. You decided I didn't belong in your world. But the truth is," Nea leaned in close, "I own your world." The officers dragged Brittany toward the door. She was sobbing, screaming obscenities, kicking her legs. As she was hauled onto the jet bridge, the passengers in first class began to clap. Mr. Henderson started it, then Mr. Zhao, and soon the applause spread back into economy as word traveled down the line. Nea didn't smile. She just watched until Brittany was gone. "Dr. Wallace," Sterling said nervously, "we have a car waiting. We can discuss the settlement immediately." "We will," Nea said. "And Captain Miller?" Miller flinched. "Yes, ma'am." "You're not fired," Nea said, surprising everyone. "But you are going back to flight school for retraining on bias and crew management. You failed to protect your passengers because you blindly trusted your friend. Learn from it." Miller nodded, tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Doctor. I will." The wheels of justice turned slowly, or so the saying goes. But for Brittany St. James, the descent from the pressurized cabin of Flight 902 to the cold, hard reality of the British legal system was dizzyingly fast. 3 weeks had passed since the incident that had horrified the internet and sent Royal Horizon Airlines' public relations team into a tailspin. In the heart of London, the sky was a bruised purple, heavy with rain that slicked the streets outside the Old Bailey. Inside the courthouse, the air was stale, smelling of floor wax and nervous sweat. The public gallery was packed. Reporters from The Guardian, the Daily Mail and CNN jostled for space, their pens poised. This wasn't just an assault case. It had become a referendum on class, race, and the abuse of power in the service industry. Brittany St. James stood in the dock. The transformation was startling. Gone was the immaculate, terrifyingly poised flight attendant who had ruled the skies with an iron fist. In her place stood a woman who looked smaller, dimmer. Her once gleaming blonde hair was pulled back into a messy, dull ponytail, the dark roots showing nearly an inch of growth, a testament to her time in remand. She wore a grey jumper that hung loosely on her frame. Her face, usually a mask of heavy foundation and bright red lipstick, was bare, revealing dark circles and blotchy, tear-stained skin. She gripped the railing of the dock so hard her knuckles were white. She refused to look at the public gallery. She refused to look at the prosecution. And most of all, she refused to look at the woman sitting in the front row. Dr. Nia Wallace sat with the posture of a queen. She was no longer the tired traveller in a charcoal hoodie. She was draped in a bespoke cream suit that cost more than Brittany's annual salary, the fabric cutting a sharp silhouette against the drab courtroom benches. Her hair was styled in intricate, sleek braids that cascaded down her back. The bruising on her cheek had healed, leaving no physical trace of the violence she had endured. But the memory was there, burning cold in her eyes. Beside Nia sat Richard Sterling, the CEO of Royal Horizon Airlines. He looked aged, the stress of the last month etching deep lines around his mouth. He wasn't there to support his former employee. He was there to ensure the company survived her. The judge, a stern woman with spectacles perched on the end of her nose, shuffled her papers. The rustling sound echoed like thunder in the silent room. "Brittany St. James," the judge began, her voice crisp and devoid of sympathy. "You stand before this court, convicted of common assault and endangering the safety of an aircraft. The evidence presented, video footage, witness testimony from your own captain, and the statement of your junior colleague paints a picture of appalling arrogance." Brittany trembled. A single sob escaped her throat. "You targeted a passenger based on her appearance," the judge continued, peering over her glasses. "You assumed Dr. Wallace was of a lower status, and therefore deserving of your contempt. When she challenged your authority, a challenge she had every right to make, you resorted to physical violence, and then, most egregiously, you attempted to weaponize your position to frame her, demanding her arrest. You sought to destroy an innocent woman's life to cover your own loss of control." I didn't mean for it to go this far," Brittany whispered, her voice cracking. "I was stressed. It was a long flight." "Stress," the judge interrupted sharply, "is not an excuse for battery. The airline industry relies on trust. Passengers trust you with their lives. You shattered that trust." The judge looked down at her notes, then back at Brittany. "This court sentences you to 8 months in prison." A gasp rippled through the gallery. Brittany's knees buckled. She grabbed the railing to keep from falling. Following your release, the judge continued relentlessly, you will serve 2 years of probation. Furthermore, given the severity of your actions aboard an international flight, you are hereby placed on the international no-fly list. You are banned from commercial aviation travel for a period of 5 years, and you will never hold employment in the aviation sector again. The gavel banged. Crack. The sound was final. It was the closing of a book. Brittany looked up, panic flooding her eyes. She searched the room, locking eyes with Richard Sterling. "Mr. Sterling, please, I gave 10 years to the company. You can't let them take me." Sterling didn't move. He didn't blink. He stared through her as if she were made of glass. Then, Brittany looked at Nia. For a moment, time seemed to suspend. The 2 women locked gazes, the one in the grey jumper and the one in the cream suit. Brittany's face twisted into a mask of pure, distilled hatred. "You did this," she mouthed. "You ruined my life." Nia stood up slowly. She didn't shout. She didn't make a scene. She simply looked at the woman who had slapped her and said, clearly enough for the front row to hear, "You ruined it yourself, Brittany. I just turned on the lights." 2 officers stepped into the dock. They took Brittany by the arms. As she was led away toward the cells, her sobbing turned into wailing, a pathetic echoing sound that faded as the heavy door slammed shut. An hour later, the setting shifted from the sterile courtroom to the opulent boardroom of Royal Horizon Airlines headquarters in central London. The view from the floor-to-ceiling windows showed the River Thames winding through the city, indifferent to the drama unfolding within the glass walls. The long mahogany table was occupied by 20 of the most powerful people in aviation, the board of directors. These were men and women who controlled billions of dollars, fleets of aircraft, and the livelihoods of thousands. Usually, they were the ones asking the questions. Today they were silent. At the head of the table sat Richard Sterling. To his immediate right, in the seat usually reserved for the chief financial officer, sat Dr. Nia Wallace. The atmosphere was tense. A large screen at the end of the room had just finished broadcasting the live feed of the sentencing. Nia picked up a remote and clicked the screen off. The image of Brittany's weeping face vanished, replaced by the Royal Horizon logo. Nia placed the remote on the table with a soft click. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every board member. "Justice has been served regarding Ms. St. James," Nia said. Her voice was calm, melodic, but possessed a steel core that commanded absolute attention. But let us not delude ourselves. Ms. St. James was a symptom, not the disease. She felt comfortable acting that way, because the culture of this airline allowed her to believe she was untouchable. She reached into her leather portfolio and pulled out a thick, bound document. She slid it across the polished mahogany toward Sterling. It spun slowly, coming to a rest right in front of his hands. "This," Nia said, "is the Wallace Protocol. It is the condition upon which I remain an investor in this company." Sterling opened the folder. He scanned the first page, his eyebrows knitting together. "This outlines mandatory bias training for every single employee," Nia recited from memory. "From the baggage handlers in the hold to the pilots in the cockpit. It mandates a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, enforced not by internal HR, but by an independent oversight committee." Dr. Wallace, a board member named Archibald, a man with a thick white mustache and a red face, cleared his throat. "We appreciate your position, truly. But this creates a parallel management structure, an independent committee for passenger complaints. It seems excessive and costly." Nia turned her gaze to Archibald. She didn't blink. "Excessive?" Nia repeated softly. "Mr. Archibald, Do you know how much Royal Horizon's stock dropped in the 3 hours after the video of my assault went viral? Archibald shifted in his seat. I believe it was 7%. 9%, Naya corrected him. That is a loss of $400 million in market cap in 3 hours. Because one flight attendant felt she could slap a black woman without consequence. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. Now, do you know what has happened to the stock price since we announced that I, the victim, am leading the reform? Since we leaked that Royal Horizon is championing passenger rights and cleaning house? The room was silent. It is up 12%, Naya said, a small, shark-like smile touching her lips. The market hates uncertainty, but it loves a redemption arc. The public wants to fly with an airline that holds itself accountable. This protocol isn't an expense, Mr. Archibald. It is the most profitable marketing campaign you will ever run. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. However, Naya continued, her voice dropping an octave, becoming deadly serious. If you refuse these terms, if you think this is too costly, then I will sell my 15% stake tomorrow morning, and I will go on BBC News and explain exactly why I am leaving. I will tell the world that Royal Horizon learned nothing. Archibald went pale. He looked at Sterling, panic in his eyes. The threat was existential. A sell-off by a major shareholder, accompanied by a PR blast from the victim herself, would bankrupt the airline. Sterling picked up his fountain pen. His hand didn't shake. He knew there was only one play here. We accept, Sterling said firmly, all terms, effective immediately. He signed the document with a flourish. The scratching of the nib on paper was the only sound in the room. And one more thing, Naya added, as Sterling capped his pen. Captain Miller. Sterling looked up. He is currently suspended. We were planning to terminate him for failing to de-escalate the situation. No, Naya said. Don't fire him. The board members looked surprised. After everything Miller had done, zip-tying her, believing Brittany over her, she was sparing him. Miller was weak, Naya explained. He blindly trusted a colleague because of seniority and friendship. That is a human failing, not a malicious one. He has flown for 30 years. If you fire him, he becomes a martyr for the Union. If you keep him and send him through the retraining program, he becomes an example. Nia stood up, smoothing her suit jacket. Send him back to flight school. Make him take the bias courses first. Let him become the face of the new Royal Horizon pilot. A man who learns. A man who listens. Sterling nodded slowly, visibly impressed. It shall be done. Nia checked her watch, her platinum Patek Philippe. Excellent. I have a plane to catch. I have a surgery at Mount Sinai in New York in 10 hours. We will have a car take you to the tarmac, Sterling offered, standing up as a sign of respect. And Dr. Wallace? The crew on your flight, they have been personally briefed by me. I'm sure they have, Naya said. As she walked out of the boardroom, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out. It was a text message from Casey, the young flight attendant who had been brave enough to slip her the note during the flight. Dr. Wallace, I just got the email. They promoted me to lead flight attendant. And they're implementing the new training starting Monday. I don't know what to say. Thank you. Nia stopped in the hallway. She thought about the slap. She thought about the humiliation of being bound in her seat while the other passengers watched. She thought about the anger that had threatened to consume her. She typed a reply. You don't need to say anything, Casey. Just lead. Lead with kindness. And if you see something wrong, speak up. You have the power now. She hit send. Nia Wallace walked out of the building and into the cool London air. The rain had stopped. The sun was breaking through the clouds, casting a golden light over the city. She took a deep breath. Karma hadn't just hit Brittany St. James. It had reshaped an entire corporation. Justice wasn't just a verdict in a courtroom. It was the ink on the contract she had just forced them to sign. She stepped into the waiting car. She was tired, but she was ready. She had a brain tumor to remove in New York, a life to save. But for now, she closed her eyes and smiled. The skies were finally clear. The story of Dr. Nia Wallace and Brittany St. James serves as a brutal reminder that prejudice is not just morally wrong. It is a career-ending liability. Brittany saw a woman she assumed was powerless and treated her with contempt, never realizing that the person she was abusing held the keys to her own destruction. In a world where every phone is a camera and every passenger is a potential witness, the truth has a way of coming out. Brittany lost her job, her freedom, and her reputation because she couldn't see past the color of a passenger's skin and the fabric of her clothes. Dr. Wallace used her trauma not just for revenge, but to force a massive systemic change, proving that true power isn't about being loud, it's about being right. Wow, what a roller coaster. I hope you felt the satisfaction of that ending as much as I did. It's terrifying to think this kind of thing happens in real life, but it's so good to see justice finally served. If you enjoyed this story and want to see more dramas where the truth comes out and karma hits hard, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you think Captain Miller deserved to keep his job, or should he have been fired along with Brittany? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.